We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
Well, folks, I just want to give you a little pep talk here to start off. Maybe this show will be a pep talk with Drew Allen, the Millennial Minister of Truth. There are people that they are just eager to go negative all the time about everything. Don't be that person. It doesn't mean that you have to be unrealistic, that you can't be disappointed or have high expectations of the Trump administration. But, we've got to move the ball forward incrementally, and that is happening. There is so much good news out there. And like I said, I'm not saying to ignore things that are not going well or things that we need to improve upon. There are those things. But, folks, we cannot wake up every day in the doldrums. This is a fight. Things are not going to all be fixed overnight. Life doesn't happen that way. It certainly doesn't happen in Washington, D.C. Nothing happens overnight. It's about a long period of advancement and improvement. Every day waking up like you're going to the gym, and you're not going to see those results as soon as you leave the gym or the next day. You look back over the year and you take a snapshot of what your body looked like a year ago, and you look at it in a photo a year later. If you've been going to the gym and changing your diet and those things, and you will see the vast improvement. And we are seeing that if we look back over the last 100 days, a little bit more than 100 days of this Trump presidency right now. And there is so much to be enthusiastic about, so much to be excited about. And I don't want you to fall into this. And there, a lot of people, their shows are predicated on the conspiracy theory or the negativity or whatever. I try and talk about the issues that matter today. I try to give some perspective to it all. Obviously, if you've been listening to me a while, I don't shy away from my criticisms and things like that. But my goodness, folks, I'll start with this poll right here. All we hear from the media is, Trump is doing a terrible job. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. We had those fake polls that came on that were coordinated to, be submitted to these news agencies at the 100 days that said, Trump is the least popular. Well, and I told you those polls were bogus. They were baloney. They were BS. They were intended to shape perception. They weren't capturing reality, those polls. They were just propaganda polls. Well, we have a new poll released on Tuesday. This is by Rasmussen, that shows that 50% of likely voters approve of President Donald Trump's job performance, saying America is on the right track. That is huge. And, income is up almost a percentage point, which is huge. This did not happen under the Biden administration. The media right now, predictably, they always want to convince you that when things are actually terrible under a Democrat president, when they're actually horrible like they were under the Biden administration, that things have never been better. And now under Trump, when things are actually improving, they want to convince you that things have never been worse. This is just how it goes. And you have to have the mental strength, the mental fortitude to deal with that, to protect yourself against these lies. That's not reality. This is huge. Yeah, and the number, according to Rasmussen Reports polling, has disapproval at 45%. 45%. So in other words, if you're somebody out there on the left or just somebody who just likes to be the permanent opposition, always unhappy, there's no difference in Trump and Biden, that type of person, we all know them. I certainly do. Well, you're in the minority. You're in the minority. Now, you can tell yourself whatever you want about how awesome you are and how much smarter you are than everyone else, but you're in the minority if you are disapproving of President Trump. It's just not true. Most of the country sees the results. You wake up every day and there's just such a relief knowing that we have somebody running the White House, and it's not an autopin administration. And I'll get into the autopin stuff in just a minute. David Hogg, the future of the Democrat Party. Well, he got catfished, or whatever you want to call it. What's it? Project Veritas. They got him undercover talking about things. Nothing really bombshell, but the guy just, obviously it's not a good look for David Hogg. But talking about who was really running the Biden White House, and it was a top personal advisor of Jill Biden, her chief of staff during the transition period in 2020. I'll get into that in a minute. But anyway, this polling about 50% of likely voters approving, saying that America is on the right track. I just want to give you context. The polling, this is the first time in Rasmussen's history that a majority believes the country is on the right track. So that's amazing news. That's reason to be optimistic. And there's great economic data out there. And, I don't think I want to go there again. I was going to talk about, all the tariff people. Oh, it's the end. Everything was doom and gloom with these people. The tariffs. Oh, Trump, all these people that think they're so smart. Now, they're not billionaires. They're not successful like Trump, but all these, armchair people out there. I see him on Facebook. Retirees, all these people, Trump's an idiot, and of course, none of these brilliant people that are constantly criticizing Trump on everything because they have to, that's all they can do. They've got Trump derangement syndrome. Now, they've never been right about anything. Meanwhile, Trump and his instincts and what he's done have been proven correct all along. And, there is truth that the implementation or announcement of future tariffs has an impact on the markets to some extent. Now, it's temporary. It's just a reaction. And these people are very critical of that. The markets and things need predictability. They need, we can't upset, the system that's been in place for 60, 100 years, even if it sucks. We just got to keep things the way they are. Well, all the tariff haters, these tariffs, at least the way Trump has used them, have done nothing but a net good for this country. They have brought about the renegotiation, or finally the negotiation period, of better, fairer trade deals for America. Donald Trump is bringing trillions of business into this country that has been overseas in the past. I mean, this is just amazing stuff we're seeing. And it shows that Trump was right about the tariffs, and all of the big, brilliant, tariff experts out there, that they were wrong. And I am proud to say that I've been right about tariffs the entire time. I've been on this side. I've been trying to explain to people what's going on here. I've been trying to explain the threat of China, which Donald Trump finally understands this administration takes seriously. Trump is revoking visas of students and others who are from, the communist country of China, who is the greatest threat to America. China is the greatest threat to America. I hope that sinks in. I hope you understand that. And no one's taken that seriously for a long time, but Trump is taking it very seriously. And finally, somebody's willing to do what's necessary to take even what might be a unpopular state. You can't revoke these. Of course we can. We're dealing with an enemy here. We know what China's up to. We know they're infiltrating everything in this country, Congress, the universities, academia, all of it. And they are trying to bring about our downfall. And Donald Trump's doing what's necessary. He has the cojones to deal with that situation. But anyway, let's keep going here. I want to talk about, here's a headline from the Daily Mail: fresh embarrassment for struggling MSNBC as new lineup leads to disastrous ratings drop. Now, this is a pretty incredible thing. Jen Psaki is at the center of this. Peppermint Patty, the once really spectacular. She was a very talented, I will say, give her credit, very talented propagandist for the Biden administration. She was good at it, but she took her propagandist, naturally, she took that over to MSNBC, where she got a show. And she has taken over. I don't know if you know that she's taken over. Just this month on May 5th, she took over for Rachel Maddow during the 9 p.m. time slot from Tuesday to Friday. And it's been a ratings disaster, an absolute disaster. It's not surprising, but it's pretty bad. MSNBC, the talent level is so low. It's pretty bad if Jen Psaki, couldn't even do better than the lineup of just clowns on MSNBC. But the latest ratings for the briefing with Jen Psaki, that's what the program's called. This is coming out on May 22nd. So, about a week ago here. It failed to crack the coveted 1 million viewer mark. Sean Hannity's show on Fox News, just for comparison, which also airs at 9 p.m., so that's its competitor, it had 2.3 million total viewers that night. Psaki's show performed dismally with the 25 to 54. This is the key age demographic. This is what everyone focuses on and wants the ratings to be a big hit with. Well, she only pulled in 55,000 viewers in that category. 55,000 viewers in that category. Hannity had 210,000 viewers in that key demographic. Her show, Psaki, it has averaged 973,000 total viewers since it premiered. A 46% drop from the average of 1.82 million who were watching her time slot when Maddow was hosting during the first 100 days of the Trump administration. So Rachel Maddow, who didn't even, Rachel Maddow is the biggest thing MSNBC has to offer. She's the power puncher. And she has nothing on people at Fox News. Fox News is the 5, remains the most popular show in cable news overall, averaging 3.77 million viewers a night this month. Psaki's numbers are also down 20% from the average of Alex Wagner, who hosted the show, the Maddow slot, right? On Monday, Alex Wagner substituted. So anyway, poor Psaki. I mean, it's no surprise. I don't know if you ever tuned into her program. I play clips on here occasionally of her program just because I like to edify people about how awful the show is. Just the type of sickening comments and behavior that takes place on there. Now, I'm going to get into James Comey here in just a second. Now, Dan Bongino, I believe, been on the 5, or maybe not the 5. He was on the morning show that they have over there on Fox News. Talking about James Comey, he has discovered a secret room, or at least a room that exists that was hidden. Not like, I don't think, you pull up something from the floor or there's a book you move and there's a secret room like that, but a room that housed a bunch of documents from the Comey era. And they're going through this and they're telling us, there is some damning stuff in here about what Comey was doing. Comey should be in prison. He eagerly cheered the idea of Donald Trump going to prison in 2024. And of course, much of that is because these people that wanted so desperately to put Donald Trump in prison were guilty of crimes themselves. And so that's where that was coming from. But I want to play this clip of James Comey just from 2024. As a matter of fact, he was on the Jen Psaki show here. And I just want you to listen to what a vile person he is. Dan Bongino talked about this. He talked about what a immature, childish mentality, which is something I actually said on the show a couple weeks ago, I think, or last week when I was talking about James Comey and just why these people are disqualified from having power. They don't have the emotional maturity. And Dan Bongino hit on that too. But anyway, listen to James Comey in 2024. Think about this guy who is a criminal who just put out, 8647 on the beach and then blamed it on his wife. Wouldn't just apologize for it. Dan Bongino has said too that, look, they're having to waste all of these resources at the FBI now on tracking down all these copycat instances of people putting up 8647, which in a nutshell is insinuating, harm against the president of the United States. And so they have to take those threats seriously and go through them and decide whether they're credible or not. But this is because of James Comey, all because James Comey couldn't keep his politics to himself. He couldn't be a mature person. This person's a kid. But listen to Comey here in 2024.
So a lot of people have suggested that there are a range of factors that would make it difficult to put the system has not been tested in this way. Do you agree with that it would be difficult or nearly impossible for the law enforcement institutions to put him in actual jail?
No, they would just put him in a double wide somewhere out near the fence, out in the grass. And he would eat there, he'd shower there, he'd exercise there, he'd be away, as Danya Perry said, from general population, but it's obviously doable.
Oh, yeah, man, there's no problems here. It's totally doable. He's salivating over the idea, should we worry about the president's safety? Presidents have never been in prison with no. We don't have to put him in with that. He can eat his food in a trailer over there, never leave. We'll keep him confined. I mean, these people are authoritarians through and through. And it's just incredible the way they entertain these notions without any real serious consideration. This is what I mean. These people don't have perspective. They don't have any self-control. They're an embarrassment. And James Comey should have never been in power whatsoever. He was instrumental in a coup, the Trump-Russia collusion hoax. James Comey bragged, of course, about entrapping Michael Flynn, right, in the early days of the Trump administration. And that's the thing that really blows my mind. There's never any expression of remorse about anything these people have done. I mean, these people think they are gods. They're above the law, above morality, above everything, and they never get in trouble. So of course they feel that way. He's in a friendly environment with Jen Psaki and these people, and that's why, once again, there have to be repercussions for things that have happened in the past. James Comey, Hillary Clinton. I mean, whoever you can get legitimately. The difference between the way I talk about this and the left was talking about getting Trump and getting this person is that we're talking about investigating crimes that we see. We're not looking for a crime because we don't like someone. We're looking at things that have happened and investigating it the way it's supposed to be. We're looking at criminal behavior and determining whether it existed or to what extent. It's not like Democrats who just say, this guy is going to beat us in the general election. We don't like Donald Trump. We have got to create crimes or go looking for crimes. We're not looking for crimes. We're investigating things that are on the surface that are so obvious. And now we're going and digging beneath the surface. And what we're finding is a lot of troubling information. So, look, I mean, the FBI, Bongino, give the guy some credit. Give Kash Patel some credit. These people aren't turncoats. They're not betraying what they promised the American people. They can't. I mean, think about how corrupt the FBI is. I mean, you're talking about, the very roots are just putrid. And you think this is going to happen overnight? These people are working day in and day out to get to the bottom of these things. And there's so much to do. There's only so many hours in a day. And, obviously there's movement. There are things happening. I like that, the Dan Bongino consistently maintains the critical, I think, important talking point that, look, the FBI, it's not mine. It belongs to you. And so they are looking into the Epstein stuff. I get it. You want the manifest. You want all this information. You want people to go to jail. We don't know what the truth is behind the scenes. We know, for example, that people were upset about Bongino and Kash Patel going and doing that interview, I believe, with Maria Bartiromo and saying, hey, I saw the tape. I've seen the evidence, and Epstein did, in fact, kill himself in that cell. And people said, these guys are covering up for Epstein. These guys are corrupt already in there. And Bongino apparently has heard you, if that's been your stance. And he's saying, we're working on releasing the video. We're trying to clean it up and so on and so forth. We're going to show the actual act. But anyway, the point is they seem to be responding. It's not like the past where they go in and they join the FBI and now they're all powerful and unaccountable. I mean, they're making effort to go out there in the media and respond to these concerns. So anyway, that's going on. Now, okay, so I played the Psaki Comey thing. I want to play this cut of David Hogg because, so this is Project Veritas. They captured Hogg on video, undercover video, talking about many things. But one of the things he talked about that was a big headline was he mentioned the name Anthony Bernal. Anthony Bernal was apparently running the White House. That's according to him. He's one of the most powerful figures in this, shadow cabinet, shadow administration. We know definitively, we've known for a long time, but now Democrats are being forced to confront it. But Joe Biden wasn't running. the Joe Biden White House. He had no idea what was going on. It was being run by a cabal of people. There have been speculation. My buddy Ed Martin has come out and given 5 names or 4 names or whatever of some of these people. And this name is new, not new in the world, but this name, Anthony Bernal, is at least a new name that wasn't on that list. But anyway, I want to play this clip of Hogg. It's about a minute long. And then I want to get into Anthony Bernal because actually we know exactly who he is. And this actually shouldn't be news.
Off the record, of course.
Foundational question for me is, like, how corrupt is the DNC if so many people knew, or few people knew about Biden, well, the president of the United States?
I mean, I think the fact of the matter is the DNC is always going to be like a campaign arm of the president, ultimately. The bigger issue is like the inner circle that was around Biden. That's it.
And I can't stress to you enough.
Like Joe Biden's chief of staff, like, had an enormous amount of power.
Joe Biden?
Joe Biden's chief of staff.
That was like an open secret at the level. Like, I would avoid him. Like, he was scary.
What was his name?
Anthony Bernal.
I've never seen him.
Exactly.
What do you mean?
He's like a shadowy, like, Wizard of Oz type figure. That's what made him so, like, and I knew how he looked, but I'm like, the general public wouldn't know how this man looked. But he wielded an enormous amount of power, and I can't stress to you how much power he had at the White House.
Folks, I cannot emphasize to you enough how big of a scandal this is in our nation's entire history. Now, I'm going to talk about Anthony Bernal in just a minute. There were other people involved in this too. But I want you to think about this for a moment. You had the Democrat Party pull off one of the biggest political heists in political history, this country or elsewhere. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that 1,000 years from now, when you're reading history of the United States, just like you're reading history of ancient Rome, you stop and you focus on this chapter in your history book because you cannot believe it happened. It is the stuff that of fiction almost that you cannot believe took place. You had the Democrat Party run a candidate, Joe Biden, who they knew was not mentally or physically capable of being president. And they did it during COVID. And they had the mail-in ballots, but my point is, I mean, that's a big scandal too, obviously, what happened in 2020. It was not a free and fair election. We know that. We know that. But they managed to install a man who was potentially already had prostate cancer, that we know was fighting with mental deficiencies and physical deficiencies, and they put him in the White House, knowing that he couldn't do the job. And then for 4 years during his administration, the person that even, Democrats voted for was not making decisions. He was a puppet. You understand this. And you have all these people that were not elected, not just influencing, right? Everyone has advisors. That part's not wild. Now, who the advisors were, the fact that many of them were outspoken communists and Marxists and the like, that is scandalous in a nation like this that fights those types of authoritarian ideologies around the world. We are not a communist nation. They defy our ideology and principles and values and so on and so forth. But you had people in this administration, people around the president, who were doing duties that only the president is tasked with executing. So you had people that stole power from the American people. This is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I mean, you might as well have some CEO of a company who gets kidnapped and stuck in a closet, and you have a bunch of people pretending to be him making decisions for the company, trading stocks, whatever else they're doing. That is the degree. I mean, this is criminal. This is beyond criminal, what happened. And so Anthony Bernal is apparently one of these people that David Hogg is aware of that was running the White House. Now, again, this should not be news. This actually came up in August of 2021, right? This is, which would be what, 6 months or so into the Biden administration. And Politico runs a headline, Jill's enforcer has a mean streak. In the acknowledgement, I'm going to read some of this, so bear with me. This is from Politico. And by the way, Jen Psaki was asked about this bombshell piece from Politico, and she dismissed it. She made fun of it. She said it wasn't credible, just like when we said, hey, Joe Biden's not running the White House. And they said, that's a conspiracy theory. And of course, now you've got all the media saying, wow, we didn't know that Joe Biden wasn't running the White House. Well, I've been saying it for 4 years. So in the acknowledgement of her 2019 memoir, Jill Biden thanks over 24 members of Team Jill. Only one staffer got a full paragraph, a special thank you to Anthony Bernal, who spent countless hours, holidays, and weekends to push me to write. All right. Who is Bernal? Well, 2 years later, speaking in 2021, Bernal finds himself as the most powerful person in the First Lady's office and as a result, an influential figure inside the White House. As I love they call her Dr. Biden, EDD Jill, remains one of the most important advisors to the president. Now, when you hear advisor, there is no advisor to Biden. If you're an advisor to Biden, you are Joe Biden. You are making the decisions. You're not just an advisor, you are acting as the president. So while Bernal carries the low-key title of advisor to the First Lady, planning for nearly every event or speech along with political requests goes through him, Democrats inside and outside the White House say, that's what they said. I read that weird. And the way he has wielded that power has made Bernal one of the most polarizing people in the White House. According to interviews with more than 24 White House staffers, former campaign aides, and people who worked with him during the Obama administration. Now, this is a rare piece of journalism, a rare critique coming from the left as early as 2021, but it was swept under the rug. There are many things like this you can go back and look at and you say, how did we go through and endure 4 years when there was actually this type of evidence? Bernal's allies and enemies alike said that his loyalty to the First Lady is absolute. Many of these same officials argue that Bernal's pursuit of perfection on behalf of the First Lady does not excuse the way he treats some other staffers. Many described him as berating and toxic because of his unfiltered criticism of others and tendency to trash talk his colleagues behind their backs. Some compare him to Meryl Streep's character in Devil Wears Prada. Anthony's loyalty to our team in the First Family is unrivaled. He holds himself and all of us to the highest standard, said Julissa Reynoso, the First Lady's chief of staff. Anyway, they go on and say he's got a big heart, whatever else. Now here, stories of Bernal making staffers cry are an open secret in the Biden world, which seemingly everyone knowing someone who has been on the receiving end, with everyone knowing someone on the receiving end. Two former campaign staffers said they heard Bernal call people stupid. Oh my gosh, Joe Biden doesn't treat people this way. Democrats don't treat people this way. They're such courageous, big-hearted people. They would never call someone stupid. They would never berate somebody. Democrats are, Jesus Christ, amazing followers of Christ. During the campaign in the White House, some staffers felt the behavior was so noxious that they began surreptitiously recording him in meetings, according to two officials, blah, blah, blah. He has a constituency of one, and he's very effective on her behalf, said one Biden official familiar. The problem is that no one who has worked with him trusts him, and that's not good for him or her. Even if you're his friend, somebody said, he'll talk crap, other word, but about you. Former advance and scheduling staffer in Vice President Al Gore's office, Bernal first joined the Biden orbit in 2008 as part of the team assigned to Barack Obama's VP choice. When the Bidens went into quarantine last year during the campaign, Bernal and Annie Tomasini, now director of Oval Office operations, moved to Wilmington and stayed together to staff them. I hope they were, vaccinated and socially distanced. I don't know. Anyway, people interviewed for this story are divided on how much the First Lady knows about Bernal's behavior. Some believe she would intervene if she didn't. Jill Biden, EDD fake Dr. Jill, was one of the most abusive people in American political history. And the victim of her abuse was her husband, Joe Biden, putting him through all this. So anyway, that is who Bernal is. He's an abusive person, a megalomaniac, somebody who demeans other people. These are who many political figures are on the left and the right. And by the way, sometimes when people think, Drew, you're a little mean or you got a little bit of edge, let me explain something to you. I live in this world. I live in this ecosystem. I know who these people are. And let me tell you, if I did not have an edge, if I did not have a streak, if I did not have the ability, I wouldn't be able to deal with it. People would criticize Trump, I don't like his personality. He's a little mean. When you're dealing with, and I mean this sincerely, when you're dealing with evil people, terrible people, the worst people on the face of the earth, and many of them find themselves in politics, you do not deal with that person by bending the knee. You deal with that person by bringing out the strongest elements of yourself. And that's why sometimes I have that edge, because I live in that world. I understand who these people are and how awful they are and what they're trying to do to this country, to our children, everything else. And you should count your lucky stars if you want to be critical of everyone else. Dan Bongino, for example, on his show, he had an edge. He told it like it was. I don't like, he's a little mean. That's the guy you want in the FBI. We have, and this goes to the destruction of masculinity as well. We have created this culture in which we've feminized, men. Toxic masculinity. Toxic masculinity. There's an amazing book I read that I can't think of the name of, that if you're Christian out there, you might remember the title. I'm sorry that it's escaping me right now. I did not plan to talk about this, so it's not on the front of my mind. It just has popped up now, and I want to talk about it. It feels important. But it was a book about, getting back to a Bible-based understanding of what men and women, we are created differently. Men and women are not the same. We are created in his image, God's image. What does that mean? And, Christianity, bad Christianity, terrible pastors, activist pastors and priests and everything else out there have done a great disservice, of course, to the faith. They do not teach God's word. They do not teach based on the Bible. They have created this totally secular image, messaging about what Christianity is. And of course, it's divorced from actually the Bible itself, the inspired word of God himself. And, men should be tough. Men should be defending and fighting for the defenseless, fighting for our children, fighting for our women. We're not called as Christians to back down from these fights. Jesus did not back down. All of this stuff we've been fed about, Jesus's compassion. Of course he had compassion. Of course he had love. Of course all that stuff's true. But it also did not mean that Jesus condoned. That'd be the opposite of condemned, right? Condoned, supported, endorsed sin. He didn't tell the prostitute, you do you. He didn't tell people who were engaged in sinful behavior, that's okay. You can love somebody, and in fact, the definition of love is speaking the truth. The definition of love is applying those principles and values, immutable, unchangeable, right, to everyone. So, that's what we're talking about here. And so anyway, I just think that people out there underestimate the danger. And people like Sam Bernal, I almost said Sam Bernal is a dear friend of mine. This is only the second person I've ever met that has the last name Bernal. So anyway, I'm not talking about Sam Bernal. I am talking about Anthony Bernal here. No relation whatsoever. But anyway, that's just something I'm passionate about. Speaking of, these people that want to control you and with your Christianity, or control you and use these levers to try and to stop you from speaking the truth or whatever else. I don't care. I don't care. I have a great degree of confidence at this point in my life. I have two wonderful, beautiful young girls. I have an amazing wife. I have this family, and I have a responsibility now more than ever to do the right thing and say the right thing and set an example for my kids. And so what I do and the way I talk and the way I conduct myself is a decision that is based on my life and my beliefs and everything else. And you better believe that with the Anthony Bernals that I encountered in my life, I am not, blowing them sweet kisses. I'm doing what's necessary to defeat evil. So, all right, I want to get into this big, beautiful bill a little bit, okay? The big, beautiful bill. And I want to explain to you I want to give you some perspective because, this is one of those issues too where it's easy to, go negative on. Is the big, beautiful bill, it's not enshrining or encoding enough of the Doge cuts. We're not doing everything that we know needs to be done in this one bill. Is this bill good? Is it bad? Well, I'll let you make the decision, but obviously I will kind of guide the discussion here with some facts, and I'll give you my opinion in a minute too. Because I just did some research this morning. I was curious too. I said, I'm hearing a lot of stuff out there. I mean, the usual suspects are saying, I can't support this bill. And I mean, in the Republican Party. And these aren't necessarily bad people, Massey or others. I don't want to go to war with people that we need right now to accomplish and protect and save the country. But we are facing a very bleak, fiscal landscape, and it's been in existence for a long time, and there are very big changes that are going to have to take place to fix it. And the reason it's not fixed is because not necessarily you, but we, the American people, don't have the appetite to address it. We don't have the willpower, to stand firm and demand it. Because the Democrats are already doing it with their talking point. This bill, one of the things they want to do and what they are going to do in it is they're going to reform Medicaid. Now, there's Medicare and Medicaid. If you don't know, Medicare is for people that are 65 and over. You're automatically enrolled in that program. No matter who you are, no matter how rich you are, you get Medicare. So we provide, you go on Medicare when you're 65 plus. It's, Medicare for retirees effectively. Medicaid is for anyone. Medicaid is for people who are below the, poverty threshold that get, government provided health insurance for free, right? I mean, we pay for it. The taxpayer pays for it. So we're talking about Medicaid, that one, not Medicare, senior citizens. We're talking about Medicaid. And, the Democrats are out there saying 13.7 million Americans are going to lose their health care, right? It's fear mongering. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of weaving here. It's important because there's a lot of information that I have to divulge to you strategically so that everyone can understand all the nuts and bolts of this issue. I want to start by bringing up this graph of just the 2024 budget. So this is the fiscal year 2024, the last one we had, expenditures, what the government spent and what it took in. All right. Let me see if I can do something here. Okay, there I'm on the side. This is beautiful. All right. So if you're just listening, I will walk through these numbers with you. So U.S. government incomes and expenditures, fiscal year 2024. Now, the government brought in $4.92 trillion in taxes. Okay? So the government stole $4.92 trillion from us, and they spent $6.75 trillion. So we had a deficit in 2024 of $1.83 trillion. That is to say that we added another $1.83 trillion to our debt, right? Deficit is annual. Debt is collective. It's cumulative. It's everything, right? So that's astounding, right? I mean, you'd think that the government could maybe survive on $4.92 trillion, but they can't. Now, where did this revenue come from? Individual income taxes made up the most of the revenue, $2.43 trillion. And then you can go down. Corporate income taxes, $530 billion. $1.71 trillion came from social insurance and retirement. Whatever. All right, now let's look at what was spent, right? So how do we get a $1.83 trillion deficit? Well, guess what the biggest expenditure of the government was, and it is every year. It's Social Security, $1.46 trillion. The next is healthcare, almost a trillion, $912 billion. So let's call it a trillion. That's healthcare. And interest payments, $882 billion. Now, interest, you're getting nothing for it, right? That's because you've got a debt and deficit to service. So you're paying Nearly $1 trillion just on the interest alone. Does that seem like a great use of money? No. So think about that. I mean, we got to tax enough to pay off $1 trillion just in interest. That's killing us. Now, Medicare, $874 billion, almost $1 trillion there, and then national defense, $874 billion. You know, and then it goes down from there: education, transportation, other, and so on and so on. So this is just kind of a big view of it. And you know, we can do more of this in just a minute. But so you've got to deal with those things. You've got to deal with the welfare state. That's the problem in the country. It's the welfare state. If you do not reform the welfare state, we're never going to overcome this debt. Now, if you were looking at your own, you know, and I was just doing this I've been doing this with my wife recently, looking at, you know, creating a budget, because there are things we want to do, certain things we need to pay. And, you know, there's too much money being spent here and not enough saved there. And so you're doing a budget. So the government should be doing the same thing, just like you would at a business. But the government doesn't think this way. These politicians don't think this way, but they should, and they must. So, so let's just talk about the Medicaid. And I would remind you, you know, the Democrats using the scare tactic, 13.7 million Americans are going to lose their health care. Now, one, it's a CBO estimate that's bullcrap. It's not true. I'll get into that in a second. But remember Obama, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan. It's not going to affect you negatively at all. That's what Barack Obama told us as he pushed his socialized medicine on the American people. Well, 4.7 million people lost their private insurance as a result of Obamacare. They lost their policies. That's what Democrats did. And just because we're on this Obamacare stuff now, the Affordable Care Act now, it doesn't mean that it improved healthcare in this country. In fact, it did not. It did not. So I don't like this idea as Americans that just because we have Obamacare now, we have to accept it and keep it forever. Now, first off, DOJ found $14 billion in fraud. Now, there's a lot more than that, but that's just what they found, a rough estimate. $14 billion in fraud in Medicaid. Medicaid. Now, where's this fraud coming from? You know, what is this bill, the big, beautiful bill, actually trying to do with Medicaid that the Democrats are trying to scare you about? Well, illegals are no longer going to get Medicaid. Now, illegals who are not American citizens, they should not be getting we should not be getting welfare. That's for American citizens. So illegals are going to lose their benefits. Okay, well, there's over 1 million people. Boo-hoo. There are duplicate enrollees. That's another area that they're eliminating. So, you know, this duplicate enrollee, that's basically, you know, let's say you're living in New Jersey and you're on Medicaid and you move to Pennsylvania. Well, the federal government is paying benefits both in New Jersey and Pennsylvania still. You're not in. So the state is still taking Medicaid money when the person isn't even in that state anymore. So you're paying it double, understand? And then this is also going to address, and you know, people who are able to work but who choose not to, like boo-hoo. So you're requiring people who are on the take that get free health care, who can work, you're rewarding them for not working. No. So we're going to change the requirements to make sure that these people actually are incentivized to go find jobs and get off Medicaid. You see, the problem with the welfare state, and I am totally okay. I know Drew Allen is actually totally okay with, you know, a degree of welfare. But the problem is welfare is used in particular by the Democrat Party to capture voters forever. So it's not a benevolent thing. That welfare is not a benevolent thing because it is chains. You incentivize people to be lazy. You incentivize people not to improve their circumstances because you punish them rather than reward them for improving their lives. And this is done by saying, you know, you're going to lose your health care if you make $1 over what we determine is the poverty threshold. So it's in that person's best interest to stay poor. This is what I'm talking about. But anyway, all we're talking about here is the waste. Overtime is the waste. There's nothing remotely controversial about this, and yet it doesn't stop Democrats from telling this big lie. Now, there are reasons to be, a little bit upset with, a lack of spending control here. This is going to raise the debt ceiling by $4 trillion. That's to avoid, defaulting and that whole fight that would have to take place again. And I don't have a problem with, you have to remember something. Now, there are two things that have to happen simultaneously to address the debt. And I agree that there are not enough cuts presently in this bill. But you can't do everything. You have to think about politics. You have to think about the midterms. If we lose the midterms, we can't pass legislation. We have a lame duck president for 2 years, right? So we need to keep control of the House and Senate. And that is politics. That is, just the unfortunate reality of it. This bill needs to pass. We haven't seen its final form. It passed the House. Now the Senate has to come up with a bill that the House is going to agree with, and they, both sign off on it, and then it goes to the president's desk, and then he signs it into law. But I want to tell you some of the good stuff this bill has in it. It extends Trump's 2017 tax cuts. We know, because we have data, that was a huge success for the American people. We know as a fact, despite what the Democrats say over and over and over again, tax cuts create growth. They create new revenue. All right. Tax cuts for the rich. No, tax cuts don't add to the deficit and debt. This is a silly way of thinking. You have to think long term, and you have to think about economic growth. So you've got to shrink government and at the same time grow the private sector, because if you create new wealth in the country, you're going to collect more taxes, and then you can pay off the debt. So priority number one needs to be to grow the GDP, the gross domestic product. There's going to be no tax on tips, no tax on overtime in this bill. It's going to increase the child tax credit by $500, bringing it up to $2,500. It includes tax on remittances. I love this. So money being, made here and then sent back to Mexico or Guatemala or, whatever, pick the state. It's going to be taxed. You can't make money here and just send it out to another state, back to family at home. You're going to pay a 3.5%. That's what it comes out to, 3.5% tax on that money. This raises the debt ceiling, like I said, to $4 trillion. And here's the thing, too, with the Medicaid. The work requirements that they're putting in here would apply to Medicaid recipients that don't have disabilities between the ages of 19 and 64 who are childless. So if you do not have children and you are able-bodied and capable of getting a job, you're going to have to work to get your Medicaid. We're not going to let you sit at home and play video games or watch TV or whatever. You're going to have to get off your butt and improve your life, and then you can have Medicaid. You're not just going to get Medicaid for nothing. You should be working. And this is the kind of stuff we have to do, in this country to improve it, to expand. So, none of that's controversial to me at all. And this is a starting point. Like I said, folks, we just have to keep moving the ball forward. We have to keep moving the ball forward. And it's not going to, 4 years isn't going to do it. You think Donald Trump can solve all the problems in this country in 4 years? Trump's an amazing person. He's spectacular. He's impressive. But there's no man who can solve all of the problems we're in 4 years. So we have to just continue to fight to do as much as we can. And, not everyone is MAGA. We have a Democrat Party that is hell-bent on opposing everything Trump does. We've got the lawfare going on with these judges who have appointed themselves. We don't have three separate but equal branches of government. We have a judiciary that thinks it's the dictator. I saw Stephen Miller was on TV making a joke about, Donald Trump should have become a judge, not president, because they hold all the power. And it's just outrageous what's happening right now. It is these judges in the judiciary who are way, 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 way beyond their constitutional duties. They are way outside the Constitution and what they're doing right now. And this is the strategy of the left, to just bring, this administration to its knees, just slow it and stop it. Pardon me. by engaging in lawfare. Pardon me again. But there's been a lot of good news. I mean, the Supreme Court has sided with the Trump administration to strip, I think, 500,000 of these illegals from having their status as, whatever, being protected from deportation. You had the universal tariffs that were knocked down by a ridiculous court decision. An appeals court now has stayed that decision and said, nope, Trump can go ahead and do the tariffs. So Democrats are celebrating for a moment, very short-lived. Hours later, they had egg in their face. So look, there are a billion things to be happy about and excited about. Look, there's plenty of problems still. We've got we've got Putin now, ramping up, which is no surprise. I've never been a fan of Putin. I have explained repeatedly the situation in Ukraine. It's not our war to fight. We've done enough, and actually we've done more damage than good at this point. But this is a hard thing to deal with, and the world should be thankful actually that they have Trump that's trying to negotiate a ceasefire. But Putin is acting erratically. Trump is playing a game here. He's calling out Putin. He's threatening this and that, and we'll just have to watch and pray that Trump is able to end this thing, peacefully, because that's in everyone's best interest. Nobody wants this war to persist. I heard Trump say something about 5,000 people a day. Maybe it's a day on average, or maybe that's the number. Probably an average. People dying every day over there. It needs to stop. But anyway, look, just try and allow yourself to feel optimistic. Allow yourself, 50%. A majority of the country feels like the nation's on the right track. We are. We were on the wrong track before. There are going to be, a few, it's not going to be a straight line, but we're headed the right direction now, and we've got to keep heading that direction. And so I just promise you, I will do my best to just give you perspective, to talk you off the ledge sometimes, but also to let you know when, I think that it's an appropriate time to be outraged and upset. But I see things happening that we voted for. I see improvement. Not that the bar was very high given what we dealt with for 4 years, but there are amazing things happening in this country, and you're a part of that. And you've got to continue to orient yourself in the right direction as well, right? I mean, don't waste all your time being upset about irrelevant things or things that don't matter right now. I mean, that's why I say I try to give you perspective. I mean, we are fighting 1,000 wildfires right now, and you've got to be strategic about which one you can handle. Democrats understand this. They play the long game. We tend to want immediate results and then give up out of frustration when it doesn't happen overnight. Democrats don't do this. Authoritarians have this attitude of if it takes 100 years. Look at California, what's happened to it. It was a bright red state under Reagan, really the greatest state in the country, and look what Democrats have done to it. They've taken it over completely. And they were persistent, and they were patient, and they kept pushing no matter what. We've got to have a similar attitude. All right. This is Drew Allen, your Millennial Minister of Truth. God bless you all. And until next.
We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.